Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. And what I'd like you to take away from today's show is our greatest growth comes from our greatest failures. Today's guest is Mike McDerment. Let's welcome him and get to know his story. How you doing, Mike?
I'm well, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. You were highly recommended by everybody I know. You're like me. You're like, who the heck would want to recommend me?
Yeah, you need new friends and acquaintances, or however the saying goes. But delighted to be here nonetheless.
All right. So a lot of the listeners are not going to know you by your name. So you want to give a little background of, are you a serial entrepreneur? What is your story? That kind of stuff.
Sure. So my name is Mike McDerment. I am probably best known, dare I say, as the founder of Freshbooks. My story went, I was running a small design firm a number of years ago using Word and Excel to bill my clients. And I accidentally saved over an invoice one day and said, there just has to be a better way. So this was 2003. I built a simple thing on the internet to bill my clients. And, fast forward a few years, we moved into my parents' basement, struggled through all that, a couple of years of that. And then, today, since founding, over 30 million people have used our software. We have paying customers in over 100 countries around the world. We're number 2 in America for small business accounting software in the cloud. So, pretty good reach. And it's been fun building up the company. I was our CEO for 18 years. I passed the baton to my partner of the last couple in January of 2021. And I'm taking on a new life as chair of the board and a member of the executive team at Freshbooks.
So with that, looking back on, it was total of, you said 18 years? That you were there, growing that. That's a long time. I had Brian Smith on from UGG, and you would think it was an automatic overnight success. And he had, 15 years losing the company and using this. Going back your 18 years, you just said you moved in your parents' basement. How long did it take before it became something that was, that people wanted to, that they actually knew that the software was really good? Did it happen in 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? What does that process look like for most people, or for you, I should say?
I think it all depends on the person. I would say we're still working on it. We've sort of been dubbed one of these unicorn companies. So we have a measure of success, but I think there's just so much more room to grow and develop. So, but probably a more accessible answer would be, we in the basement, we were making like $100 a month after 2 years, but we were talking with people on the phone and they were signing up for the product. Not many of them were turning into customers. We didn't have our pricing and packaging right, but people would use the product, talk with us on the phone, ask for help, and they found great, time savings. Frankly, was the big thing with our product pretty early on. And so that was our first indication. People were like, hey, I love this thing. It's super easy to use. It's saving me a bunch of time. Can you make it better like this? And so we listened to that and we worked on it, over and over again. And that's kind of what fueled us, frankly, the serving the customers and serving our customers and just the love of trying to solve the problem of making things better.
All right. So for somebody like myself, you would be classified as small business, and we use this other one. We won't mention their name. What is the benefit of that software that you created versus that other one that we won't mention?
Very good. Thank you.
They're not paying me to produce, to market them, so they don't get me to mention their name. So go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if we are either, but that's another.
Yes, you're on here. Freshbooks. Anyway, move forward.
Thank you. So we, what really makes us different is we're not built for every single small business in America or around the world. We focus on what we call service-based business owners, folks who get paid for their time and expertise, their knowledge. And so you might be a lawyer, you might be a marketing agency, you might be a tradesperson, but you really don't have a lot of inventory. We don't do retail, we don't do restaurants, we don't do businesses that are wired that way. And what that lets us do is keep our business really simple. And we focus a lot on receivables. So, people who send invoices and we automating, helping to collect that. So you really get ease of use. You get, air quotes, workflows that work for the kinds of businesses that we serve. And I think you just find if you tried our product, it would feel like a fit versus something that's built for accountants. We're really built for owners, service-based business owners.
Right. So that could even be a mortgage company because that's service-based, right? We don't have invoices, but basically we just take money in and pay bills, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suspect we have, a whole roster of mortgage companies under the hood in our customer base.
Well, you might have one more after this. So
that would be nice.
You're laughing. I'm serious. It's like, I'm trying to make it such an easy process that you don't need as many people as you normally do, right? There's so many different software out there for many different aspects. Let's make it as easy as possible so that it's an easy task and it's not so difficult. Because even, payroll, all that stuff is, because you guys do payroll, I assume, through there or in.
What we do in that case is we partner with Gusto and other providers. They're probably the best in class, most akin to us payroll offering in America, which is it's super easy to use, and we really like it. The products work nicely together, so that's where we're at. Maybe someday we'll have our own offering, but for now, they're the best choice that's out there.
Or they could buy you, or vice versa.
Who knows?
You never know. You never know. Things have been, unique things have happened. So looking back, all right. So I think are you a serial entrepreneur? Was this your first go at this?
So my story was I left business school in fourth year. I started two businesses. One of them was an event business. I had to teach myself how to build websites. My caterer for that wanted a website, so I started building websites for other people. Then I saved over an invoice and started a software company. So those were all in serial. Over the past 18 years as CEO, I was running, doing kind of parallel entrepreneurship, where 15 of the 18 years I was involved with, another project along the way. And most recently, the last 5 years, I'm involved with an insurance software company. But that doesn't sound very exciting. Anyhow, so I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm a parallel entrepreneur. At the end of the day, I think that's probably the word best to describe me. I love designing and building things, solving problems for customers, and that's how I choose to apply myself in career, and often and increasingly helping other people do the same.
All right. So looking back as your rise through the ranks of the company that you built, at what point did you finally get out of your own way and realize what you were good at? You follow what I mean by that? Because us as entrepreneurs, we own it. We start a company. We're in charge of it. We try to do everything. And finally, we wake up one day and say, I can't do this. I have to get enough more people. Or was that something you knew right out of the bat?
So let me tell you a couple of things, because I think there's a bunch of, I'll share my journey, for better or for worse. One of the first times I had a good advisor around me, founder of a company named Rackspace, if anybody knows it, big web hosting company and based out of Texas, and they San Antonio, in fact, and wonderful guy. And he was sort of advising me, and I was talking about, I got this board meeting coming up and I got to pull this report together. And it always just, drives me nuts. And he was like, well, why are you doing that? I was like, well, I feel like it's my job. And he's like, well, why don't you get someone else to do that? Why don't you get, Levi to do that? Levi was my co-founder. Funny thing about Levi, he was like a project manager, as part of his background, and a consultant, and he loved doing that kind of stuff. It was really easy for him. And that was the day I realized, there are people who love to do the things you really hate doing. And in many cases, they're much, much better at it. They do it easier, it's faster, it's more gratifying. And so that was a powerful day. And that's when you think about all the roles in a company, we're over 600 people today. There are people who there are people who would hate to perform my role. There are people who I could not perform their role. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a wonderful thing about the world. And it's just around marrying people up with roles and opportunity that fit. And so that was powerful. I'll tell you the another version of that, though, which is quite different, which is as we scaled the company, we got to this breaking point at about 150 people. And I was still involved with almost all the decisions of the company. And my problem was at that stage for me, like I was making a lot of decisions because I didn't feel like they were being made well enough. And people would say you're a control freak. And I think what I've learned in hindsight was I just hadn't surrounded myself with that next level of talent that I really, really needed. And then we went ahead and hired an executive in a role that really was an executive and was like a step change from everybody else who was around me. And then I was completely addicted because the experience of that was like he could manage me, but B, his area and parts of the company in a whole bunch of ways. And I was like, wow, I can just finally go hands off. And then I was addicted, and I was like, well, we just need more of these people. And the next year, we actually rebooted the entire executive team. which was great. And that really helped us scale the company gracefully beyond 150 people. And so, the point there is, I think I was a bottleneck, and I kind of failed to have a good look at and understand the next caliber of talent. It's very hard when you're starting somewhere else, you haven't worked anywhere else, you just don't know. But then, once I saw that, I was like, everybody's better at everything than me. All the executives, I often, in most cases, people paid people more than me. They were the professionals. I couldn't do what they did, but I would hire them and manage them and organize them. And that was and motivate them and keep everybody going together. And that was my secret sauce.
Gotcha. Now let's go back a little bit further than that. So how many started the company?
It started with me when I saved over the invoice. And then there were sort of 2 or 3 of us for a couple of years.
All right. So because you said how you must have got out of your way sooner than that, right? Because you hired more people to do certain things. What I'm getting at is it's hard when you're the person starting a company, right? For people who've never started a company and they're growing the company and their plan is to get maybe someday as big as your company's gotten. It's got to be a process where you go through and you're like, okay, we got to hire one more person. We got to hire more people. We got to hire this. You're right. And you start adding these roles. Next thing you know, I need to when did you hire that first professional? And let me make sure I get this right. That actually helped change where you can hire more people to do the job that you need to do. Did you hire an HR person? Did you just hire somebody? Are you following me here?
I think so. I'm going to come at it a little bit differently because this is
whatever you want.
When you get started is like, you are doing everything. Right. You're one person, you do everything, and you have to start carving your role up a little bit. And where and when and why and how to do that is a challenge. And so what I'll often do is steer people to there's a great book that covers this and a lot more called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And you've probably heard of it. Many of you probably have. But one of my favorite things from that book is it talks about the kernel of every company is 3 roles. There's the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And when you're a founding person and you're just one, you probably are doing, the entrepreneurship, the technology part, and the technician part and the management all in one person. But you probably, if you know yourself well or over time learn about yourself, you probably have a greater strength in one of those 3 areas than the other 2. And so the key is to find that. And so my 2 founders, remarkably, we were a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur. And so I sort of lucked out. First, they were great people, but second of all, we were very complementary to one another in terms of our super strengths and areas of focus.
So how did you find the other 2 people to be the founder? So that would be the next, because a lot of people are like, I don't want a partner, I don't want other people. But it seems like I've talked to a lot of people and they've had good success with partners or other people when they found a company, where I have had not necessarily the best success with partners.
I think, a couple things. One is any way you do it, that's great. I think the whole trick is to know yourself, right? And what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And some of the most successful people I know, like, almost can't work with other people, but they are just so extraordinarily good in their area. And I think that's to be celebrated. It's just a matter of kind of knowing that and planning and designing your life and your business around that fact. So with that, so how do you go about doing it? I will go ahead and say I was very lucky. One of my big challenges was I'd never worked anywhere else. So I had no idea what to look for. I had no pattern recognition in hiring or seeing what a workplace looked like, having any kind of role model for what a CEO was, like nothing. I was making all this stuff up, but I had the good fortune to get involved, by sheer luck with an individual who was a good human and who I built the first version of our product, and he was like, hey, can I work on that? And so he became the technician. He was a doctorate in computer science. He started working on that. We enjoyed each other's company. We worked, long and hard together on this project on the side, but we had complementary skills. It was not strategic. It was happenstance and luck. And so I think the trick is to try and look inside yourself and say, hey, what are the problems I most like solving? And what are the ones I perhaps least like solving? And, for me, I was more on the business and the vision and the strategy. And he was more on the, I want to figure out how to make this part of the product do this thing for us and in a short period of time. So that just worked out in our case.
So basically it was somebody who decided that they like what you were doing and they like, I want to work with you on this and be part of the process is basically what what happened? Because this didn't just come out of college. You've done a couple things before this. So I was just trying to see how you got the two other people together to grow the the other two people, how they came to because a lot of people are like, this gentleman is helping you on it. I could see how that could form into wanting to be part of it. And then because you had a third person, correct?
That's right. So I mean, just to go into it, and I did do some sort of research to better understand this stuff. We were introduced by a mutual friend. It was not a professional relationship. We actually met through the sport of ultimate frisbee. Okay, and so we ended up working together because we had a shared passion that was not the project we were working on. And by the way, I think that's actually a great way to start in a lot of cases. And then our third, founder was like almost like a best friend from back home on the other side of the country of this other guy, and he was in the area, and so the three of us started working on it. And the point is, we didn't get together thinking we were going to make a lot of money or anything like that. It was just like, hey, let's see if we can figure something out here. It was very much an adventure. And it was very much a loose network of people who brought us there. It wasn't a professional thing. I'm not saying that's going to work out every time for everybody, but often that is the way it kind of goes. Is you find somebody of like a good person who you like. You're going to spend more time with this person than your spouse. Full stop. So you better have a chance at kind of like loving them. That's my. I don't go looking for the technical skill. Yes, Joe is our technician. But I didn't choose him because of that. I chose him because of his kind of character and moral fiber, and our interest in enjoying doing things together.
Right. Now, I was just trying to understand how your company was formed. To see how that is, so that people can understand that things just sometimes fall into place. Right. Basically.
They do. I think, that sometimes they do. I
mean, they don't, you can go look, but a lot of times people, I mean, it's just like a good relationship with your wife. They don't always start off like my wife and I were friends before we became, intimate. And so it just depends on, you got to put that whole situation together, understand that you guys work together, and then the fact that they're there. So I just kind of want to see how the founding people were put together, how you guys came together. And then I could see now from that how it grew forward. Each of you had your own part that you would take care of, right? I just didn't know if you were the first person and then you hired a couple other people. And I was trying to get the full.
No, these were full-on card-carrying founders, and I think that's a special thing, right? Because we didn't make any revenue, let alone money or profit, for a sort of long time. And when you have a founder and you're not hiring somebody because you're making a bunch of money. I had another business where I was hiring people, and they were great people too. But this was different.
Was that the event? What was
the web? I had like this.
Okay, you still had the web. Okay.
People build websites. Yeah, that was. So we ran these businesses in parallel for a while to finance the startup, if you will.
And to pay bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, a lot of times the companies that you start, they don't make money for a while, right? Some of them.
No.
If you're creating something is what I'm trying, software or other things.
No, that's true. The startup, huge amount of risk, and can be a long time till you get somewhere where you're generating any meaningful revenue. And in a lot of cases, you may have to raise capital to get to a scale where you can, make significant dollars. So for us, it was like building a product and then, investing money in sales and marketing to go and get customers, and all of that takes a lot of capital.
And I mean, you're in a marketplace that was dominated by a couple people, right?
That's true. I think there's a good lesson in there for aspiring entrepreneurs, which is, even if like our competitor had, over 80% market share when we started out. It was terrifying. And everyone was like, why are you doing this? You're going to get crushed. But we just carved out a little piece. And the piece got bigger. And over time, we've been very successful. And so I think, one, if you're playing in a big market, it's probably a lot bigger than you think it is. And you just need a small piece of that to get going. And then you can expand over time.
Well, and it just shows that there's a large market there that's probably being utilized by one, the 80% person who has that much market share, is because there isn't anything else out there, right, to benefit differently. And so you have to look at all that avenue when you're looking at starting a business stuff. What's my market share? What am I up against? Who's my competition? That just showed there was a lot of room for you to move in there and take over just a little portion of it, which is probably, enough for a lot of companies, right?
I will go ahead and say sort of to that one. There were
whatever. I'm just trying. So.
Yeah, no. I think it's I think it was really a credit to the way they ran their business and frankly the structure of the, maybe I'm going to like business strategy here, but back then people bought software on the shelf. When I started, people were buying software on the shelf, not on the internet. The internet is a highly democratizing thing. One of the ways it democratized things was we could reach end customers without having to have a contract with like Staples or Best Buy, which they would not give us, frankly. And so we were able to start off in this other market another way. And so I guess, what are the takeaways? Yeah, big markets are great. But sometimes emerging or new channels and paths to your end customer can be a place to start out. And frankly, the bigger, more established players often won't go there right away. So it's a good place to get going.
Right, in that same fleet, but you're talking. I mean, because I remember that's where you bought all your software was at we're talking a long time ago. That you see boxes on the shelf. Let's get it, or you go to Costco. Here's the box. Let me go up and let me install it. We don't do that anymore. It's all downloaded. So what you guys created is where the market went to.
That's right. And interestingly too, I'll say this for those of you who are maybe a little more pioneering. We had a lot of times where we were like, people were calling us up and saying, "Hey, it's great that you have this thing and it's hosted and I can just sign up and use it. But what I'd really like to do is have you burn it onto a DVD and run it on my computers here. And I'll pay you like, $10,000 for that." And at that point, $10,000 was like more than we made in a year. So it was a pretty attractive option. But we decided, long term, we think the world's going this way and focus is a precious thing. So we don't want to get distracted by trying to do both. And so thank you for your offer, but we'll just pass. But that was hard to do. But if you really have a long-term vision for where your market's going to go and how things are going to change, I would just say hang in there. In the long run, you'll probably be rewarded.
Looking back, anything you'd like to change differently?
Looking back, I get this question a lot.
We can change it then. I'm just kidding.
It's okay. I don't have a super exciting answer. I think the biggest thing I would change, hey, could I grow and develop faster? So much of what we're doing is when you're an entrepreneur, you want to go ahead and, you have to change at the rate to keep up with the business. And having never worked anywhere else, everything was new every single day for a long time. And so, when everything's new, you don't necessarily, always move as quickly. Having said that, I will go ahead and say we saw competitors who moved too fast and went out of business. We actually almost raised some money in the early days that we'd given a lot of the company away for a relatively small amount of money. It didn't work out, and that was a blessing. And so while I wish I could grow and develop faster, like most people can't, it happens at the rate it happens at. And I actually think my rate probably helped us in many ways along the way. Because we might have gone too fast and, kind of run ourselves out of business thinking we'd missed it when it hadn't even started yet.
Gotcha. I mean, because as I said before, there's different people you talk to, you think that things are so successful right away and you find out it's taken years. Because a lot of people start a company and they're like, man, I've been doing this for 5 years. It's like, you have no idea. It can take way longer than that. So, put the time in. If that's what you want to do, keep working on it and it'll grow over time.
Almost every overnight success, was 10 years or more in the making.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been working at this for 15 years. What are you talking about? So, not this company. I'm just saying that's what most of these companies are like. No, we were not overnight. We've been here for a while. You just never heard of us. Right. So,
yeah, that's right.
All right. So now with this under your belt, you said you're working on something else because
I'm still, the lion's share of my time and attention goes to Freshbooks. A number of years ago, I co-founded another company, but, really, Freshbooks is my focus and there's just a ton of work still to do there. And I love doing it. We have this remarkable service-oriented culture and we get to help owners every day. And that is, it's tough to compete with for anything else I might spend my time on.
Right. I mean, for me, from just hearing about it, it sounds like it's so much easier to use, first of all, than other ones that I know of. Right. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. All right. So because you've been an entrepreneur now because you said you never worked anywhere else. So basically you've owned your own companies, right?
Yes, and or parts of them as we brought on investment. Yeah.
Right. What I mean is, but looking back, you never actually worked for anybody else in your whole life?
I, 10 years.
Besides the little jobs in high school
Yeah,
and
the little
college.
jobs in high school and stuff. That's right. I had, that's effectively true.
Well, no, because that's the same way as me. I, pretty much can't work for corporate because I would get fired because who I am, right? I have a certain personality that I rub people the wrong way usually. So, it's just one of those things. You have to be an owner or you can't work for somebody. So that's how I am where I'm at. Huh?
I remember in my 20s going to a job interview, and it was for this. I was sort of tangentially working in the television advertising commercial production industry. It was like sort of 6 to 9 months where I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? And I was basically lifting heavy equipment, between things. Anyways, I went to a job interview in that field where there was a store that maintained the film for the crews, kept it cold. They came and bought new stuff. They dropped the stuff off. It went off to production. And I came to do this interview, and it was kind of like a retail job. Sit there, check stuff in, check stuff out. And the interview started out, and in like 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, why do you do it this way? This seems ridiculous, right? I didn't know anything. I just met the guy, and I'm like trying to turn everything upside down. Didn't understand why they're not built to work elsewhere. So I think there's, that's, it is what it is.
That is funny because that's how we were built, isn't it?
There's a whole nature versus nurture thing. I would say, yes, it's, I went to business school, and really why I was not motivated to finish there was, it just seemed like it was building a bunch of like middle managers in sort of corporate America, if you will. And I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I just knew that wasn't it. And so I just kind of petered out and ended up, doing other stuff. And that was really the starting of getting me on this path to entrepreneurship, starting those companies, and one thing leading to another over time.
Yeah. Before we go, basically, I want to go back. Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
Not exactly, but my mom was an entrepreneurial, I don't know what you call it, but like kind of volunteer. She started a number of things that were not companies, but were actually in aid of others who are sort of less fortunate, and with actually remarkable success across a couple of them. So she was a multi-time founder herself of things that were not necessarily governed by entirely by finance and scale and huge organizations, but she started things, got them going, and made an impact for others.
Kind of like nonprofit, kind of more nonprofit.
Yeah. I think that's the way to think about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, helping other people, service organization, however that is, right?
100%. She did some great things.
Okay. No, I just wanted, I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad worked for Ma Bell, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom for years, and then got into doing antique stuff and selling it on, swap meets and stuff. So I guess that would be an entrepreneur. But basically, my whole background was not that, right? My grandfather had a dairy. I worked out there once, every summer while I was in high school and weekends, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do for life. So
I think a lot of people don't have a role model of entrepreneurship in their lives. I did not obviously have one, that's for sure. Hindsight, yes, there were some things there, but yeah, and I think it's one of the hard things. It's not an obvious career path, and certainly was not when I was growing up. It was, nobody was saying go start your own company. It was like go get a job, which is just different. So it's hard to. Yeah, it's almost amazing you get on a path like this with that kind of role modeling.
Yeah, for me, I fell in the mortgage industry. I mean, nobody ever says I want to go to school and become a mortgage broker or work in the mortgage industry, right? So I think it just has to do a lot with things in life that you plan on doing, and you just go through it. But for me, I couldn't see, if I look back, I wouldn't have changed anything because I wouldn't be where I am now, right?
There you go.
But I assume the same with you. I mean, with your company. But if somebody wanted to find out more about your software, they just go to freshbooks.com.
Yes, I think that's the simplest way. And you go there, and if you like the look of it, you can sign up for a free trial if you like, or give us a call. We're always glad to answer the phone. You'll get a real live human, and we'll see if we can answer any questions you might have.
Isn't that amazing how hard it is to get a hold of companies these days? They don't even have like real people phone numbers or anything. It's like you email or text or, chat.
I don't understand it personally. That's okay.
Well, that's better for you because you guys answer your phones, and that means more people will call you. Right. Mm-hmm. Mike, it was nice having you on today. Anything else you want to drop before we go?
No, Ed, thanks for coming on. I just want to say thank you for doing this. There's a lot of people out there who want to get started. It's a huge challenge and it's a journey. And so maybe I'll just say, hey, if you're thinking about running a business or you are running a business, just do yourself a solid and forget about the destination and just try to enjoy the journey. It'll be a challenge and it'll be rewarding.
I think that's a great thing to say right there. That was perfect because it is. I will shut up after that. All right. I want to thank you for joining us today on Inner Edison. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and what our guest journey was like. And like he said, enjoy the journey. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.